Hey everyone, welcome back. In this episode, we're going to add addition, removal, and reduction to the quantity of our cart products. So this number here is what I'm talking about. For this, we're going to need to go into our cart, the page that we're at. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a div, and I will add some columns. And I will create three columns, one for the minus button, one for the quantity, and one for the plus button. Alright, so let's go ahead and add a column multiplied by 3, so there's our three columns. First one is going to be a button, so I'm going to give it a class of button, and the type is also going to be button in case we're going to have a form later on, and I want to submit it. Let's give this a minus, so this is going to be a minus first. Let's take this, copy it, and put it here and replace it with a plus here. Next thing, what I want to do is I want to move the quantity into here. So let's grab this, put it here, remove this, and let's see how this looks. Alright, so in Bulma on mobile by default, the flex direction of columns is column. So what we're going to do is basically add is mobile tag, and this should put it back to a row. There we go. One thing we have here is we have a floating button, so what we can do is I'm going to go into CSS, and at the bottom here I will just say align items center. I think it's align items center, so align, or probably align self center. Let's rename this to self. Okay, let's grab this class. I'm going to go into cart, and I'm going to go ahead and add this class here. And let's see if this does the work. Yep, it does. So it's aligned back to the center. If you want to use font awesome icons here, you can. You're welcome to. I'm not going to do that. We're going to focus on the addition and reduction functionality and removal. Okay, so next thing I want to do is I want to add a section with scripts here. And let's add a script tag. I will also need Axios for this because I'm going to be making call requests. So I will just quickly jump into my admin layout and grab the Axios package here because I don't think we have it in our layout here. So I'm going to check by going to the bottom here, and we do not. So let's close that. Put the Axios package here. And let's write some JavaScript. So the first thing I'm going to take care of is the plus button because we already have the plus button. So essentially the add to cart functionality here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically say add one to cart. And this is going to be a function which will accept an event. And let's go ahead and actually bind this first so we can see what we're grabbing. So on click, I want to add one to cart, and I will pass the event here. Next thing that I want is, let's go ahead and take a look at the add to cart. And in the request here, we have stock ID and quantity. So I need to pass the stock ID, quantity. I know I'm only adding one, so I can handle that in the controller. So I want to basically say data stock ID equals add product dot stock ID. So this is something we already have in our view model. Next thing, I'm just gonna say console log in, and let's close that off. Let's give this a refresh, go into the console, and all I'm gonna do for now is press the plus button, and hopefully that should log something to the console. Unless I've put it on the minus button, and I did. So if I press the minus button, that's when we get it. So I'm gonna have to move it to the plus button in a second. But if I grab the event, I want to go to the target. So the target is our button, and then I want to go to the data set. And the data set are going to be data dash whatever follows. So here we can find our stock ID with the number that's assigned to it. Okay, so I'm gonna close that. I'm going to take all this sweet functionality that I've put here, and I'm going to add it to the plus button instead because that's where it belongs. Okay, so let's grab the stock ID. I'm going to go into event, target, data set, and I'm going to grab the stock ID. Alright, now what I want to do is I want to grab Axios and I want to post to a controller. And with Razor pages, if you have these static forms, you basically always want to post back to the Razor form. But if you do JavaScript inside of your Razor pages, you still want to have a controller to interface it. It's just it feels more natural that way, and it adds more sanity to your project. So we're gonna grab Axios, and we are going to post to a controller that I'm gonna call a cart controller. So cart, and we're gonna have an add to cart, or rather, let's call it the same as it is here. So add one to cart, but it is a cart controller, so we can say just add one. Let's give it a big C for the conventions. And we're just going to put the stock ID on the end. And then the response, we can just console log it. I don't think I'm even going to do anything with it. Or we want to update the quantity actually. So let's say to do update quantity. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create this controller. I'm going to go into the controllers folder. I'm going to say cart controller.cs. I'm going to inherit from controller. I'm going to import that. I'm going to create a public task since I'm going to be adding stuff to the database. So this actually will have to be async. I will say add one since this is what I decided to call it here. And let's go ahead and say int stock ID and return OK for now. And this task will actually have to be action result. And let's say HTTP post, and stock ID is what we're posting. And for safety measures, I'm gonna just make sure that it follows my routing conventions. So I'll just say controller / action. Okay, so in here, let's create an add to cart class. So new add to cart. And here's our service. So this is going to accept an iSession and AppDB context. So let's go ahead and see if we can find our session in the HTTP context. And our database goes here. So let's go ahead and create a constructor where the type is application DB context CTX. Let's import our DB context and let's make it global. Okay, and now what we can do is just go ahead and pass this here. Alright, so we have our add to cart. Let's go ahead and basically say success equals add to cart dot do, because this is a task of boolean. Okay, so if success, or rather let's do, yeah, this should be fine. If success, return OK, else, or actually we don't need the else, return bad request. Okay, and we can say something like failed to add to cart. Okay, and here we can say item added to cart. So if you want a pop-up, you can have it now. And in here we want the request. So the request is a add to cart.request. So let's say request, and let's forge our request now. So var request equals new add to cart.request. We will set the stock ID to stock ID, and the quantity we're gonna set it to 1. Put it here. Request is gonna go in here. Success, we will have to wait on this because this is a task, don't forget it. And here is our nice little controller. So now let's go ahead, let's fire this up and see what happens. So I'm gonna Control F5 to compile this. Close that. Let's go ahead and grab this test updated item. I'm gonna submit and press 1. Yeah, and now if I press 1, I didn't get anything in the console, I don't think. Let's see the network tab if there are any errors here. I can't see anything. So if I refresh, this should be 2. And it is. Okay, so the plus button is working. So what we can do is we can basically go here and say something like, we will need to identify items by their IDs. Or rather, because we have the stock ID already, we can do that. So let's say ID equals at, or rather, let's say stock dash at product dot stock ID. There we go. I'll just pop it to a new line because my screen is super big. So now what I want to do is I want to basically, on success, I want to find whatever I have here, and I want to add 1 to it. Or rather, what I can do, or I can't actually, wait. Add to cart, do returns a boolean, yeah. See, I cannot, if I could have returned a new count that we have, but I don't, so that's alright. Let's go ahead and do something with this. So we know that the ID is going to be var, or rather ID, var ID will be stock dash plus stock ID. So that's going to be an ID, and the element that we want to grab is document.getElement by ID. So we're going to grab an element, and now we want to grab the quantity that will essentially equal to element dot inner text, okay. And because this will be a string at this point, we want to just go ahead and say call the parse int function just to be safe here, and this should be good. So now we can go ahead and essentially go element, not set attribute, or maybe we can just say inner text, yeah, equals quantity plus 1. Okay, and let's see how that goes. So let's go ahead, give this a refresh. I will Control F5 this. I will open up my trusty console to look for any errors that are gonna pop up. I'm gonna press plus. Okay, and you can see that this has increased automatically with the round trip. And what you can do as well is you can just go ahead and catch for the error, and let's say that we want to alert error message, or I don't know, error or something like that. And if the item fails to pop up, the user is going to get alerted. Usually you want to use some kind of custom pop-ups for this, but essentially this is what you want to be doing. So let's go ahead and add one for reducing what's called reducing quantity. So let's go copy this whole thing, and we'll say remove one from cart. So remove 1 will be the action, and I want to basically say -1 here, and alert can stay the same. Okay, so let's right, where was I? Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead, copy this bit, I'm gonna put it on this button, same as before, and then I will say remove 1 from cart. Okay, nice. Just double check the name, remove 1 from cart. Yep. And the name of the action will be remove 1. So let's go ahead and add this action. It's going to be pretty much the same as this, except this will be now remove 1, and this will be remove from cart, and we are pretty much going to say the same thing here. So now what I will do is this add cart. Let's go ahead into Solution Explorer. I'm going to grab the add cart. I'm just going to go ahead, Control-C, Control-V, copy it. I'm going to remove the dash copy part, and I'm going to rename it to remove from cart. Okay, I will then F2 to copy the full name of it. I'm going to go into it and I'm going to rename these classes here quickly, and all the errors should go away. Okay, so let's see what it's doing. We're getting all the stock on hold and all the stock that we want to hold. And if the stock that is basically available to us is less than we're requesting, we want to pop out. So this will not be the case here. We are not going to be popping out at all because we are going to be adding the quantity back. So we want to go ahead and remove this. We're not going to be adding anything to our stock on hold, so we're going to remove this as well. And let's see, stock on hold. And actually thinking about it, I'm just going to remove all of this stuff because at the moment we want to be able to remove things from our cart first and then remove it from the stock on hold and off hold thing. Alright, so cart list, we get our cart products. So our cart lists, if we have this stock ID, which we should have because it's displaying on here, but it's still good to have the safety. So if we have any, this is where we want to proceed, or if we don't have any, let's just return true anyway because we are good. So if we don't have any cart, or rather, let's say if it's null here as well, let's return true, because if we don't have any cart, all good. Once we do get the cart and there isn't any stock that we want to remove, we're also good. And at this point, we know the stock that we want to remove, so we just want to go ahead and add the quantity, which is really, we can still keep it a plus, but then we'll have to pass a -1. So I'm just going to keep passing a 1, but what I will do is I'll just add a minus here. So just keep in mind that you can keep it a plus, but then you'll have to pass a -1. Okay, so we remove this quantity here, and then let's see, we serialize the object back and we store it in our session. Cool. So once we have stored it, let's go ahead and get some stock that is on hold. So stock on hold equals ctx dot stock on hold, and where I want the stock ID to equals what we have in our stock ID. And I want to see, did I add anything in terms of expiry date? Or let me see how it expires. So I believe we did it in get products. Nope, or rather get product. Okay, and I just want to make sure that it is removed, so I don't need to filter for something that is, you know, like there for no reason and it is just expired. So we do remove it. It is not just flagged as expired, so let me go ahead close that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and grab the first one that's there. I will basically just say first or default here, and I will say stock on hold. Let's grab the quantity, and we will say minus equals request quantity, and then we can basically say if stock on hold dot quantity is because this might not have, or let me actually check out the object. Okay, where it belongs to a session ID. Okay, so we will need to supply a session ID as well. So I'm gonna say and the session ID equals, where do we have it? There it is, session dot ID. And just to double check that that is the exact ID that I'm using everywhere else, session ID session. .id. Yep, it is. And let's put an equals here. Okay, so I'm getting the stock on hold, and I am basically reducing the stock by this quantity. And if the stock on hold quantity is less than or equals 0, I want to just go ahead and flat out remove this stock from from the database. So let's go ahead, say stock remove, and we just want to remove the stock on hold. Okay, and then let's just go ahead and say await ctx.save changes async, and that should do it. Okay, so that looks good to me. Let's go into the cart controller. Let's see, this should all compile now. Yep. Let's change these messages. Item removed from cart. Failed to remove item from cart. Okay. Let's close that. Let's close that. We'll open it if we need to. I believe in my power. So do we want to display result data? No, we don't. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and run this. See what happens. Okay, so I'm gonna go for this product name with the price of 188. Let's go ahead and grab one. So I will also go ahead and open up SQL Management Studio just so I can inspect the stock on the hold part, because to be honest, that is a little bit confusing, but that's something, because it is a race condition, it is going to be just a bit confusing. Okay, let's open that up. Let's look in the database, and this is the wrong database. Is this on the local database? We did not end up publishing it, did we? Nope, we never published this. Okay, so I can go into my local database, and I can go into my shop tables, and I will take a look at the stock on hold, and I'll view the data. So there's quite a few. Let's grab the expiry date, and let's see which one is the last one. So it's 8/33 right now. 34. Okay, so this is the latest one. 1007, I believe, is the ID for this. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. 1007, that's what it is. So let's go ahead and try to add one. That adds it. So if I refresh it, there should be one extra item with the same ID, or should it? It should really be incrementing it, really, shouldn't it? Yeah, it should. That's a bug. That is a bug. That's going to be a nasty bug to fix. Okay, never mind. So let's go ahead and refresh. I'm gonna go ahead and press a minus, and it did reduce it, but that's a successful call. So I'm gonna give it a refresh. Okay, cool. And let's give this a refresh. And one item is gone as well. Okay, so you can see that we are adding and removing item, but that bug can cause some issues, because if we're removing more than one item, and when we're adding items, if we are getting the first or default, it might not be all the quantity. So we don't want the quantity to be spread across multiple records. We want to keep it the same record. So the bug is contained into add to cart. And let's take a look at where we're adding to stock on hold. So this addition should only happen if the stock on hold itself is, let's say, because we're getting all the stock on hold because we want to refresh it. But yeah, and okay. So if this stock on hold doesn't contain the item that we have, let's add it. Otherwise, we want to increment the quantity. So let's say if stock on hold dot any x stock ID equals request stock ID. So if there is any, we want to add to what's it called? Add to stock on hold. Else, we want to go ahead and add a new one because it's not the same ID. Okay, so then we want to basically say stock on hold dot stock on hold dot find x dot stock ID equals request dot stock ID, and I want to grab the quantity and I want to set it to request quantity, and I want to add it? Yeah, I want to add it just like that. So let's go ahead, put the semicolon on the end. Okay, and stock to hold. Yeah, we minus the quantity. Okay, everything else should be okay. So I will go ahead, grab all of this stock and delete it, or that will not return it safely. So never mind. I'm not gonna delete it. I'm gonna rely on it to clean itself up. So let's go ahead and run this again. And we'll give this a refresh. Let me go buy some more. And I regret closing this thing. So let me view the data again. Okay, so same as before, I'm gonna grab the product name, except now I should have a different session ID, and I should have one extra item here. So if I refresh now, nothing should be there. Yeah, so that null looks a little bit suspicious. Okay, never mind, that was just a bug. So let's go ahead and submit one. There we have it. So that's one, our last one that we have added. Let's go ahead and add one more. So now what I'm looking for is for this quantity to be increased rather than an extra item added. Nice. So now if we want to decrease it, this quantity decreases. Okay, good. Now the next thing that I want to tackle is essentially removing the whole item from here, okay, and returning the stock on hold. And returning the stock, actually. And that's not something we're actually doing, so we're losing stock when we're adding the items back. Okay, that's alright. So let's because these are going to be sort of equal size, so let's give this is 4, and is 4, so it occupies the whole row, and then we can add another div here, and we can say class column is 12. And we can add make it look like a link sort of thing, but it's not actually going to be linking anywhere. And we're just going to say remove, and we're going to say text, or rather has text warning or error or danger, yeah. So let's do that. Let's give this a refresh. And there it is. It's still bleeding off. Is that something I can do? Oh yeah, right. So I will have to add is multi-line for it to wrap. Nice. So there it is. Let's go ahead and has text centered. Give this a refresh. And this text should really be centered as well. So let's say has text centered. There we go. And the buttons aren't centered. Let's see if we can give the whole gaff. Close the window. Okay. Let's go into cart. I lost my cart because I recompiled. Ugh. Okay. Alright, so let's see if all the text is centered. It looks to be. Let's see, div. That looks centered. That looks centered to me. That looks centered. Let's see if I remove the has centered part here. And that rogue space, also remove it. Give it a refresh. Okay, and now let's say if we can reduce the size between this. So is 1 is gapless. Okay, so that looks a little bit better, but you know, okay. never mind. Let's proceed. So let's say I wanna do var remove all from cart equals function eat, and I'm gonna be doing the exactly same thing as I'm doing before. Let's go ahead and copy this. We'll add it to this button, and we'll say remove all from cart. We're gonna be passing the event. Let's give this a bit of formatting, and let's scroll down. And again, I'll just copy all of this stuff, put it here. Remove all is what I will call it. And now let's go to I closed everything, didn't I? Let's go into remove from cart. And what I can do actually is I can just say bool all. So I just want to remove all. Okay. So by default, this is going to be false. So the only time I really need to set it to true is when I do remove it all. So what I can do here is let's say if request all. What we want to do is we want to remove the stock on hold, which doesn't matter. We can do it by the end. But what I want to do is I want to restore the stock in my shop as well right now. So let's grab the stock here first. So var stock equals ctx stock first or default, and we're gonna grab the where the id equals request dot stock id. Okay, and we want to restore this stock once what's it called? Once we clear everything. All right. So this is our total quantity that we're holding. So this is the stock that this is the quantity that we want to restore. So stock dot quantity plus equals this quantity, and then let's go ahead and set this quantity to 0. Otherwise, we want to restore the amount that we are subtracting and then set it to whatever we're subtracting from it. Okay. So this is how we're going to restore stock to our actual stock in the database. And by the end, we're calling save changes, so that should be good. Stock on hold quantity less than 0. Yeah, so if it's going to be 0 or less, we want to remove it. It shouldn't really be less than 0, but you know, anything can happen. So right, where were we? Oh, let's go into our Actually, let me quickly check that we're not using quantity from our request anywhere else. So if we do end up calling all, we can make sure that we don't have to supply the quantity. Okay, it doesn't seem like it's being used here, so let's go into cart. I am going to copy this, paste it here, remove not one, but rather all. And let's go ahead and instead of quantity, we'll say all true. So we're going to be removing everything. Remove the all from cart. Failed to remove all items from cart. Removed all items from cart. Cool. Okay. Looks good to me. Remove from cart. Oh, let's go into here. Let's make sure that I have this thing here. Okay. So the difference with this is that here we will have to remove stuff. So we'll actually have to remove a whole element here. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to take care of that. So one level is one item. So let's go ahead and say ID equals product, and we're gonna say dash stock, not stock ID, but rather actually product dot stock ID. And make sure I spell it correctly, and let me make sure I don't have this ID anywhere else, because I do tend to be not very creative with my IDs, which is a good idea. Okay, that seems alright. So now when I get my ID, I can say product plus stock ID. I'm gonna get this element. By the way, if you want, you're fully allowed to do this. I'm doing this for readability because of my small screen. Feel free to optimize your slocks. All right. But anyway, let's see what else we need. So once we get the element, we want to remove this. We don't want to faff about with any quantities. And the easiest way to remove an element would be to basically just say outer HTML and just set it to. So we're not really deleting an element, we're deleting its contents. Okay, so let's go ahead, recompile this and see what we get. And I will close all of this stuff. I will open up my stock on hold, so view data here, and let's view the stock as well. So let's see the or rather, is it stock that I want to see? Yeah, stock. So let's go ahead and work with this large item. So this is going to be my product name. Grab this large item. Let's grab it. Okay, so now this should be at 9, and it is. So there it is at 9. This should have one extra item here, and it's removed some items that have expired. Nice. So 1009, there it is. Let's go ahead, add one. So give this a refresh. It's still at 2. That's nice. It's working. This is at 2, and now this should be at 8. And it is. Okay, so if we remove 1 now and refresh, it's still at 1. This should now be back at 9. And it's at 10. So that's a little bit worrying. Let's take a look at this. And this is back at 1. Okay, so how come this is at 10? Let's go ahead and do that again. Maybe this way we can get infinite items and infinite money that way. So let's give this a refresh. Okay, so we are getting 2 items more than we should once we remove from cart. So let's go take a look at why that happens. So remove from cart, stock quantity. We do grab it only once. Stock on hold. Okay. Right. So this is what it should be. Request stock quantity. So in the else bit, make sure to replace stock on hold with request stock quantity instead of stock on hold dot quantity. Okay. So let's get back to this. I will give this a refresh. So we are on 11 now. Let's go ahead into here. Let's grab like 5 and large. Let's see what we get here. So this should be 6. It is. This should be like 5 that we grabbed. So there it is. Okay, nice. So if we remove 1, this should be 4. Whoa, close that. This should be 5 now. That's 7. Or rather, yeah, that's correct. 7. So if I remove 1 more, that should be 8. And it is 8. Okay, so that's working. Alright, and now for the grand finale, if I click on this, that should be back at 11, and this should be removed. So this should be at 3 now. It is. Let's go ahead and remove this. Okay, element got destroyed. Refresh this, row is gone. Refresh this, and we have 11. Alright, so that's essentially it for this episode. We learned how to add, remove stuff from cart and remove the item completely. Also, whilst managing our stock on hold and returning items back to stock once they're removed from the stock on hold because the person's no longer holding those items because he no longer wants to buy them. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you have any other requests, leave them in the comments. I would like to make content that's personalized for you guys. And as always, see you in my other videos.